Kunja Vihari. All glories to the Assembly of God. All glories to the Assembly of God. All glories to the Assembly of God. All glories to Shri Shri Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So, everyone knows Bhagavad Gita. It's like some people say it's like the Bible of India. It's the basis of our Krishna conscious philosophy. It comes from a epic literature called the Mahabharata, and it's situated at the time when Krishna and Arjuna were about to battle against the Kuru dynasty. Pandavas and the Kuru dynasty were the inimical Kuru dynasty. And Krishna revealed to Arjuna that he was God. And Arjuna, being in a very intimate relationship with Krishna, he never thought of Krishna as being, the supreme, original personality of Godhead. And so Krishna revealed this secret, most confidential knowledge to Arjuna. And Arjuna, at first, he was very much astonished and began to apologize for his intimacy with Krishna. I've joked with you, I've insulted you, I've made many offenses in our relationship. I'm sorry. And he was very much, even when Krishna was showing his form as the, encompassing the whole universe, and his energies and his potencies, his mystic potency, Arjuna also became very afraid. So during the course of that revelation, Krishna gave Arjuna a lot of information, a lot of how to become God conscious, how to become free from, because Arjuna was gripped by Maya. He was completely distressed. He was so distressed that his body became weak, he was trembling, he was very nervous, and he was feeling very fearful. I mean, he couldn't even grip his bow. He was so intimidated by the whole idea that he would have to be in a battle with his relatives, with his grandfather who was on the other side, his teacher was on the other side, and many other uncles, and he was thinking how he was going to commit some dreadful, sinful activity by killing his superiors. But Krishna, he enlightened Arjuna to the point of relieving him from the attachment to his relatives. And in this world, it's a problem becoming attached in this world. The problem is that when we become attached to material sense objects, or car, home, money, or we become too overly attached to family members, country, society. It's unfortunate in this world. It's not that we say we don't love your family members. Of course, that affection is natural. But without Krishna being involved in that relationship, if we become attached to a thing in this world and we have no knowledge of God, that attachment in this world makes us become miserable. We have to suffer. If one is very internalized and very meditative, and can study his his internal works of his mind and intelligence, consciousness, one can understand and one can see that how attachment to material objects, attachments to the objects of the senses. We have 5 knowledge acquiring senses. We can see, we can hear, and when we become overly attached to sense objects via media, these senses, it causes anxiety. It causes some kind of suffering. So Arjuna was enlightened by Krishna to how to get relief, because he was very attached to especially his grandfather, who was their mentor and their shelter, because Arjuna's father had died before he was born, so they were practically raised by his grandfather. So he had so much attachment to his grandfather. So Krishna told him, you have to sever this attachment. And how do you sever that attachment? It's so strong. Family ties are so strong. And even Arjuna's mother, Queen Kunti, she prayed that she could sever the attachment that she had for her sons, because it was actually an impediment to her full realization of the personality of Godhead. But it's not that when we sever these attachments that we have no more affection for family members. That affection still exists. We have to take care of our automobiles and our homes and our bank balance. We need all these things. So the affection is not, that you don't care for these things. You just want to give them up. You don't give up. You don't have to give up anything. But what Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna is that you have all of these opulences, but you think of me, and you use everything in Krishna's service. So that is the solution to suffering. Because we become overly attached to what we possess, and we become not utilize this human life for understanding who Krishna is. We'll end up, having to take another birth in this world, having to remain in ignorance, having to suffer due to what we're attached to. So Krishna, he enlightened Arjuna. I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna says that he's the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from him. But the wise person who knows that Krishna is God, they engage in his service. And this service to Krishna is very important, because everything we have should be utilized in Krishna's service. Krishna says, I am the source. Krishna says he's the supreme proprietor. So if he's the proprietor, what's our position? We are not proprietors. Sometimes we think, my house, my country, my home, my money, my this, my that, so many things, my clothes. But actually none of it really belongs to us. It all belongs to Krishna. So even the heat and light and rain, water, everything we use, this is all coming from Krishna. So we have a debt to Krishna for supplying. What if Krishna supplying the sunshine? So we have we all have a debt, because what would we do without the sunshine? The sun grows all the fruits and vegetables. It gives heat, enthuses us to engage in activities during the day. So many, even the sun is also rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and performing that duty of rising every day, heating the planet, and going away at night, heating up another part of the universe. This is the service of the sun. The sun is actually a nice devotee, and his name is Vivashvan. And Krishna spoke this Bhagavad Gita to the sun god some millions and millions of years ago. And it was passed on to his son, and this Bhagavad Gita was passed down in a whole line of disciplic succession until we have it today. So the wise who know how great Krishna is, how powerful he is, how he is the source of everything, and how he is the Krishna Swayam Samabhavat. He is the source of all incarnations. Even us as tiny little living entities, we're also incarnates of Krishna, but we're very tiny incarnates. We're meant to serve the supreme incarnate Krishna. So we're very small, but we also emanate from him. So all spiritual and material worlds, everything is, Krishna is the source, and everything is emanating from his very own body. And how, you know, the Mayavadis, they cannot understand how when everything is created, how Krishna, you think everything's exhausted, but Krishna is inexhaustible. He's never exhausted. He has created millions and trillions of universes and planets and spiritual and material worlds, and he's still, you know, the same inexhaustible Supreme Person. He hasn't lost any of his wits. He hasn't, you know, he doesn't get tired. He doesn't wear himself out. He's still Krishna. He's still. So the wise person, they perfectly know who Krishna is. They surrender to him. They take shelter of him. They think of him. They like hearing about him. They become enlivened by chanting his glories and preaching his glories, and they become absorbed in listening to his pastimes, and they utilize everything in his service. They you know, like here at the temple we have a good fortune. Sometimes maybe when we live in our householder situation, we may forget that, you know, everything belongs to Krishna, and we start using things for our own tastes or our own hearing and vision and so forth. But here at the temple we have the good fortune where we can come and we can see Krishna. You know, in our homes we can make our home just like the temple also. We can have pictures of Krishna where we can look and think about the particular pastime and think how beautiful or how wonderful or how powerful, how great Krishna is. So, like that's one kind of service. There's 9 kinds of devotional service. You know, like there's coming to the temple, or, you know, reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Reading books about Krishna is like hearing. You know, then you're talking about chanting, singing, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and in this way increase the. Because to do this, you have to have some kind of attraction. You have to have some kind of inquiry to want to know who God is, what He is, and to become fully self-realized, one has to develop an attraction. This is the beginnings of self-realization. One has to, you know, you hear something about Krishna, you become inquisitive, and you want to ask more questions, and you want to hear more. You know, to the point where you have this attraction for it. Then you derive some pleasure from this attraction for Krishna. And then it increases more where you can, you know, always remember Krishna. And this is very important. One of the number 1 rules is there in the Padma Purana. And it's goes like, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu. It means Satatam means always. Always remember Krishna, the source of Vishnu. You know, always remember. And Vismartavya means never forget. You know, and then Vismartavya Najatu Chit. Never forget at any time. But to always remember Krishna, you know, I'm sure we have many things in this world we're all fond of, and we remember those things because we're very fond, very, you know, I can still remember this one beautiful girlfriend that I had when I was, you know, in high school, you know, 50 years ago or so. You know, you can still, she was so nice, you know, fond memories. So in order to remember Krishna, we have to have some good memories. Memory means intelligence. You have to have good intelligence. So if we read Srila Prabhupada's book, Srimad Bhagavatam, we have Bhagavad Gita, and then we graduate from Bhagavad Gita, we read the Srimad Bhagavatam. I know Bhagavad Gita was plenty enough to attract me to join this movement. And it was like, oh, this is what I was looking for. I always wanted to know who God was, but I was so caught up surfing. I'm from Hawaii, caught up surfing and wandering the beach looking for the nice tourist girls coming from California, and seeing what was happening in the nights and parties and crazies. And so even, although he wanted to know who God was, I never really had enough knowledge to really have an attraction. So, but Srimad Bhagavatam is the book that provokes attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's one verse in the first canto, second chapter, that describes where Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to provoke attraction. So you have to have that attraction. And with that, what provokes that attraction, you have to have some. There's another verse in the Nectar Devotion which states, Anya Bilashita Shunyam. It means that you have to have very favorable, this devotional service has to be done favorably. Cannot be done in ignorance. Ignorance, unconscious, uptight, angry, arrogant, or, some unfavorable mood. The devotional service has to be done favorably in order to increase that attraction. So, by hearing about Krishna and deriving some pleasure from this hearing, and attracted to hearing about Krishna, then one can continue, and have that and develop some enthusiasm for engaging in devotional service. So the wise who perfectly know Krishna, they engage in his devotional service, and they worship him with all their hearts. So we have a lot of heartfelt feelings for many things in this world, but to develop those heartfelt feelings for Krishna, to develop some attraction. I'm sure there's other words that can describe an attraction and an affinity for the topics of Krishna, and an affinity for wanting to know who Krishna is more and more. And then but it takes practice of, absorbing. There's one word they use in the Bhagavad Gita, Yukta Vaivam, where one has to become absorbed in hearing and always manmana bhava madbhakta, always thinking of Krishna and becoming absorbed in Krishna. And Krishna, if you become absorbed like that, he will reveal himself. You will get a chance to meet Krishna. But it takes that type of absorption, 24/7. Not just coming, go to church on Sunday, then you go to work all week, forget about everything, laugh and drink beers after work, and then you go on Sunday again. Not like that. This Krishna consciousness requires 24/7 attention, and like I was saying, the utilization of everything we have, utilizing everything in Krishna's service. Our time, our money, our like when devotees eat, they offer their food to Krishna. You can make offerings at home and offer to Krishna first before you eat. Then there's other aspects, praying, following the instructions of the spiritual master. So we get all of our instructions from Guru right here in these books. All of these books, senior devotees, and there are many ways to get some knowledge about who Krishna is. And then this knowledge is what will absorb our thoughts and teach us how to utilize everything we have in Krishna service. And in order to become successful in the endeavor, it takes becoming absorbed in the process. 24/7. There are many other behavioral behavioral instructions, how to behave. There's etiquettes and so forth. But above all of these etiquettes, one is just that absorption, how to think of Krishna constantly, and how to develop feelings for Krishna. So we have our feelings, or our consciousness right now is basically our senses. We see, and we're entrapped by the eye, or our consciousness entrapped by the ear, entrapped by the belly, the tongue, the genitals, of course, the attraction for the opposite sex. So we understand this type of mundane pleasure, being entrapped by the senses, but we have to learn how to become entrapped by Krishna. And our senses will entrap us, but Krishna, he won't entrap us. He'll actually set us free, and free to expand our consciousness in blissfulness and no fear and strength, power, so forth. Whereas the being entrapped by the senses, make us weak, make us fearful, make us become full of anxiety. So to understand what is spiritual and material, one has to, study within. One has to become intelligent, very intelligent, in order to discriminate what is the difference between spirit and matter. And so we understand Krishna is not different in his name. We chant every day, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this Maha Mantra is non-different than Radha, non-different than Krishna, non-different than Balaram. It's the whole spiritual world and spiritual consciousness that's all inclusive in that name. So if we absorb ourselves in that chanting, we have to learn to try to rise above the entrapment of the senses. Because chanting this holy name, actually one has to have undergone many austerities and many severe penances in previous lives, in order to be able to chant Hare Krishna. Just like Bill Gates, he's very rich, very powerful, businessman, and we had so many others people who are very wealthy and so-called high position in society, but we shouldn't become envious of these people, because these people, they've done severe austerities in their last life to be in the position of, Bill Gates, or President of the United States, or big celebrity making millions of dollars. They did austerities in their last life to get there. So due to impious acts in their last life, some people become poor, some people have middle class, some people are living in poverty, some people are holding signs on the street. But it's not due to the society, it's not due to not going to school, it's not due to not listening to your parents, or having problems, growing up as a child, some psychological effect, they can't do this. No. All of these problems and different classes of people are all, they say that as you reap, so shall you sow. So in the previous life, we did so many activities. So now in this life, we're reaping the results of activities from our previous life. So we can't blame anyone, you can't blame your parents, you can't blame your teachers, you can't blame yourself for what you did when you were growing up. The fault is all what we were doing in our previous life. So now in this life we're reaping, and we're making desires and accumulating, reactions. So we're going to take another birth in the next life. Maybe it will be good situation, maybe bad situation. It all depends on what you're doing in this life. So there are many Indian people, they know how to be very careful according to different shastras, so that in the next life you're not going to be in a precarious position. They'll be secure, they'll have everything they need to make further progress in life. But that's not the goal, to reach a higher birth in the next life, or to have wealth or power or beauty, or even go to the heavenly planets, live in the stars with the demigods. It might sound attractive to the less intelligent, but that's not the goal. So the goal is to not take birth again in this world. The goal is to become free and to go back to the spiritual world. So this requires simple thing. Just learn how to love Krishna. That's the key for going back to the spiritual world. If you have a little affection for Krishna, this can get you back into the spiritual world. But to get that affection, to get that pleasure, it takes a lot of concentration on mind, fixing the mind on Krishna, fixing one's intelligence on Krishna, and fixing one's consciousness on Krishna. You have to have your feelings, your consciousness fixed on Krishna. And then your consciousness, when your feelings are absorbed in that way, you grow out from the nature that's trapping us and keeping us in this world. So and then to the point where we have some affection for Krishna, and then we can get out. But that takes cultivation. That takes, all your services have to be done favorably. You have to chant Hare Krishna favorably. You can't just, sick of this chanting already. That's not favorable. So we have to become very favorable in every, even sitting, listening to Krishna, you might think, oh God, I'm falling asleep. Listening to this guy is giving me a headache. Let me get out of here already. Sit outside. But you have to force yourself, to hear, and force yourself to chant, and then and just pray to Krishna. Krishna, please let me be favorable. I'm in so much pain sitting here. My legs are falling asleep. I can't just let me be, favorable. So so sometimes we have to pray to be favorable, and then just force yourself to stay there. Then, you get a little snap of, there's something with this Krishna, and then you keep increasing that pleasure, keep increasing that interest, keep increasing that attraction for one to more and more, have that affinity for hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna. So it takes force at first. You have to force yourself. You have to sacrifice, sense gratification. I remember when I got initiated, my guru told me, right when I was getting my name and I was getting my beads, it's on tape, where he's saying, so many lifetimes, hogs, dogs, camels and asses, you've tried to enjoy your senses. Just take this one lifetime, control your senses and go back home, back to Godhead. So, I've tried, I think 45 years already, still trying, still have these unfavorable urges and desires to take up some nonsense in life. But you have to pray, you have to be strict and, watch your diets and, and follow the rules and regulations very nicely. And just try to absorb, and just try to become absorbed somehow or other. Simply if we just become absorbed in chanting, just chanting Hare Krishna, and we can become enlightened in that way. Simply by remembering Krishna, we can become enlightened. Engaging in service. 9 processes of devotional service. Ultimately, we want to become Krishna's friend. But Krishna, he says, as you endeavor, he gives the intelligence by which you can approach. It's not really, it's just somehow or other, we just have to have the desire to want to know Krishna, and Krishna will fulfill that desire. But that desire has to be cultivated. It has to be nurtured. It has to be watered. And it has to be. So the best way to water that desire is, associating with devotees who are absorbed in Krishna, and capturing that association. We can make advancement in our attraction for Krishna. And advancement means, you're increasing in pleasure, and anxieties and miseries are subsiding, and our depressions and all of these other qualities of the material nature subside, and we come out from the modes of nature and experience Krishna. So are there any questions or comments at this time? Please. Yes.
We're all individuals, and we have our independent point of view, and may accept some of what you're saying or some of what we hear in spiritual endeavors, but we're not fully capable of accepting point blank. So in this case, Arjuna is not even able to hold on to his bow. He becomes so weak from being saturated in this stress. But it's only when Krishna agrees to guide him. He says, I have no hope. You tell me what to do. And so Krishna tells him, just abandon all these varieties of distractions and simply surrender to my instructions right now. You're responsible for doing this service, and no one else is capable of doing what you're capable of doing. So when you come to that point, you have to come to a point where you're willing to accept someone else's guidance. And so Srila Prabhupada put in place the system of initiation, where one can make a vow that I'm going to follow the guidance of this personality because I believe he can take me back home. He is, or she is capable of giving me good direction. So until we're able to come to that point of I'm no longer listening to me, I'm listening to this person, until we come to that point, it's very difficult. So my question is, how do we come to that point without being beat up by material energy to get us to that surrendering point?
Well, sometimes getting beat up will put us into that direction. That's the Krishna's illusion energy, this material world, Maya. She's actually always beating us up. We're always being pricked by miseries of life. So when one can see that by thinking about Krishna, that he gets he gets some relief from that beating, and he comes out of the darkness and he can see some light. Then that's it. It takes an experience of it's not full self-realization, but it takes some realization to a small degree that by chanting Hare Krishna mantra, I feel peaceful, or by seeing the form of the deity, I experience some appreciation for the deity. But if you examine what is that appreciation, if you understand, you get the education, that because that's a conscious experience of Krishna somehow or other. So we have to have that conscious experience of, well, maybe there's something to this, and then it generates our curiosity. But it takes a conscious experience, and so by hearing from from pure devotees, these are devotees that don't want to exploit you for your money or for your service, or they just want you to learn how to love Krishna. So it takes a to bring about that change, from being so hard-hearted and opinionated in our own ideas. It takes something that, your consciousness just has to emerge from that state of mind. I mean, you can see this state of mind, is really causing me to be very miserable. And then when we experience a change in consciousness or a change in heart, that's what you have to build on that. You have to build on that experience. These experiences we can hang on to them and we can cultivate them, and then we can learn how to put. Rupa Goswami gives the perfect example of misplaced affection. We're suffering in this world because we misplace our affection, and we put great affection into our own ideas, our lifestyle. We have a sense of, distinction, and in the way we think and feel and so forth. And we put our affection there. We love ourselves for being that way. But if we take that affection and we just place some affection into Krishna, like Prabhupada was saying, turn your face to Krishna. So if we turn our affection, we can see if my affection is here, I'm affected like this, and I don't feel very satisfied. But if I put my affection on Krishna, I feel a great deal of satisfaction, a great deal of peace. And that's the only thing that can, sever our ties to our own ideas and it's just we just have to place our affection and put it in another space. Put our mind in, or what we want to place is our consciousness in that space. And consciousness means affection. It's the soul is Satchit Ananda. It's Ananda. It's full of affection, Ananda, bliss, and it's full of knowledge, and also eternal. That's the constitution of the soul. So we have to deal with life from a conscious state. The mental state, intelligent state, these states, like intelligence has doubts, it has, misapprehension. It's all described in the Bhagavatam, how the characteristics of intelligence. The mind, it's just meant to accept and reject. And although we have to use our mind to reject what is unfavorable for devotional service and to accept what is favorable for devotional service, and in this way, become conscious, understand your loving nature, your conscious nature. Don't be hiding behind the veil of, hatred for somebody else's ideas. They're wrong, I'm right, or so many different aspects of life that come under the guise of, this mind and intellect and so forth. We just have to learn to be conscious, learn how to be loving. And that loving is actually meant for Krishna. And then when we love Krishna, then we can love our neighbor as ourselves. Because without learning how to love Krishna, it's difficult to understand affection for other people, because we'll always be covered. So the only way to be uncovered is to learn to love Krishna. And then when we have that love for Krishna, then we can be equipoised, like the learned Brahmin. He sees a dog, an elephant, a learned man, a most degraded man. He sees everyone with equal vision. He sees everyone as a soul and a servant of God and in that way. But without that affection, without being conscious, conscious doesn't mean just necessarily awake. Your body can be awake and you can be unconscious, but consciousness means it's the affectionate nature of the soul. And that consciousness has to be, like Krishna says, you surrender unto me, and then Krishna says he will protect you from all sinful reactions. But it requires, when we chant, we have to chant with some affection. And it starts with attraction, and then everything becomes successful. Very simple process, but sometimes we're so embroiled in hatred and anger and where's the love? Everybody's where's the love? So we got to find that, and we have to apply it to Krishna's holy name, to the topics of Krishna, and then be free. It's a simple process, but sometimes we're so embroiled in the modes of material nature and this body, and but we understand, we're not these bodies, but we're eternal spirit souls. We're not Russian, American, or Muslim, or we're spirit. And that spirit has to be, you have to learn about it. What is it? So it's a way to understand the soul, it's affection. An easy way to understand it. It's eternal, blissful, full of knowledge, fully aware. But our awareness has been dimmed, and our affection has been, how do they say dimmed down? We're under pressure of this, and then we forget how friendly we really are, or how loving we really are. We want to be loving, and but then somebody you come, with some cheap love to somebody, get out of here, don't bother me. But like Srila Prabhupada, he was full. Every time you see him, they're full power of affection. We all became very attracted. He sucked us right in. We came right up, He immediately established us on the highest platform of rendering service to the personality of God. He didn't give us, meditate on Brahman, or, meditate on, sit down and meditate on the super soul. No, he gave us devotional service. And it's by that service one can understand Krishna. You can have a relationship when you're rendering service. Any other aspects of halfway self-realization, even with the super soul, he doesn't relate to you. Whereas when you come to the platform of dasyam, of being a servant, that's the position of worshipping Bhagavan. And then you can have a relationship with Bhagavan. And only Bhagavan will relate to you. Whereas in personal Brahman, there's no relationship. On the platform of Paramatma, there's no relationship. You can see Paramatma, but Paramatma is not going to. You can see how they describe the yogi, they see the Lord walking and doing this and everything, but it doesn't relate. But on the platform of Bhagavan, the highest platform, to be there you have to be at least on the platform of dasyam, and then one can relate to the Supreme Lord. That way have a relationship, eternal relationship. That way your love can increase, your consciousness can increase unlimited. They say it's like an unlimited ocean of happiness and so forth. But it takes cultivation, it takes hearing, it takes knowledge. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the best book for developing that attraction for Krishna. Are you convinced?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yes,
Sir,
ma'am.
I was sort of, you said there's no relationship with Super Soul, but He's always helping us in whatever we want to do, and we can turn to Him and He'll help us.
The Lord gives intelligence, and He gives, but He doesn't. You
It's
can't.
not
You
the
don't.
rasas.
You don't relate.
It's not the rasas, but you connect when He teaches and helps you go to Krishna. So it is not inactive. It's just not. It's not the whole rasa kind of thing. It's not the
No.
pleasure of the relationship.
No, but it's a neutrality. It's just a neutral thing. It's not that He, it's not that He's going to talk to you or relate. I read this in Prabhupada's books. So it's not. Some people say, "Oh, the super soul," but the super soul is a witness of our activities. He's witnessing what we're doing. At some point he becomes very disturbed that we're not taking up religious life and so on like that. But it's, when you begin a relationship with the Lord, it's on the platform of Bhagavan, and one has to come to darshan before being able to understand what the relationship really is. But on Paramatma, it's not a complete connection there.
It's not like the rasa.
Just like that's why the devotees sing like the Dhamma-raskam, I'm not attracted to Paramatma, I don't care for Brahman, any liberation or Paramatma. I just want to see Krishna and his childhood pastimes and so forth. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for coming today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.